Yo, what's up? This is Rev Outlier, and today I want to talk about narcissism, but for parents in particular. Narcissism in parents is also what continues the cycle of male sacrifice and female hypergamy, and I'm going to explain how I think this personality disorder contributes to these behaviors, as well as some things I think might help with getting away from this shit. Now, keep in mind, when I talk about the parent-child relationship, I'm not only talking about pre-adolescence. Children become victims of their parents' narcissism and live their entire life, or up until the parent's death, being dependent on that parent. I believe I've also suffered from narcissistic parenting and have come to realize how it influenced my habits and way of thinking. I had to progress past it to truly understand its effect in my life, for me to spot it in others and be able to cut those showing signs of narcissism, even if they're family. I don't give a fuck. Alright, so what is narcissism? To give a brief definition of the word, a narcissist lacks empathy, has no ability to accept criticism or fault for wrongdoing, seeks to fill a never-ending void of superiority by constantly putting or bringing others down, and feels they deserve everything without putting in the work necessary to get it, besides making the promise to. These actions or habits have to be consistent and frequent to be considered a true narcissist. Now, the narcissistic parent sees their child as a means to reinforce their own poisonous beliefs and insecurity, a savior from their own failures at life, if you will. The child is their meal ticket out of the misery and the hard work it takes to prove their character to others. But the child only ends up being the receiver of this misery and conditional love when it suits the parent's inflated ego. Children being children, they usually accept their parents' behavior and either learn to adapt to the parent's mood and behavior to keep them happy, or avoid the parent's advances at making them their puppet and accept the neglect and shaming from the parent for daring to think for themselves or be different than what the parent wants. The child constantly gets the feeling they'll never be good enough for the parent or to learn to be independent. They'll instead learn to be codependent. And codependent simply is someone who requires and seeks approval and security in themselves from others to feel validated. They don't know how to provide those things for themselves and become reliant on outside sources, often leading to addictive habits. The parents continue to use their authority and the child's naivety and need to be accepted against them to get the results that they want from the child, or to get out of the responsibilities of taking care of their child as they're supposed to. This can be verbal abuse, like telling them they're disappointing or worthless, or completely just ignoring the child's needs and wants to fulfill their own, and make the child feel like their needs and wants are inconvenient and should be shunned. Violence and manipulation are the two main weapons in a narcissist's arsenal. So physical abuse coupled with showering the child with love after you confuse them and try to salvage the relationship enough to continue to get what they want is a common tactic. Narcissistic parents never see or truly understand what they did wrong and will always find a way to justify it or blame others for what happened. Now, how does this relate to hypergamy and emasculation? Well, I'll fucking tell you if you listen to me ramble this long. It's all about childhood and the type of habits and behaviors that develop from having at least one narcissistic parent. So how are daughters affected by narcissism? Well, usually with narcissistic fathers, they can go one of two main ways. They either spoil the girl rotten and give her a false sense of self-worth and importance without ever earning it, because the daughter will learn to do whatever makes her narcissistic father happy to get what she wants from him and develop into a fully grown, purple-haired, straight-A, political science, liberal arts major who thinks she's rebelling by being a slur or acting like one, with no sense of reality and a strong sense of entitlement and hypergamy. She will look for other men willing to give her that same false sense of security in herself so she can feel the same acceptance her father gives her for being his little pet baby girl. And that leads to very manipulative behavior like faking love for resources or power if she's attractive. The father can also completely neglect the girl and implant every bad characteristic males have in the girl's mind, which she will be attracted to indirectly but find repulsive if blatant. She will continue to pat herself on the back to avoid dealing with the truth of the dysfunction her father created and lack of respect and understanding for quality men and masculinity that she has. She can even sometimes try to become a man to compensate for the lack of a strong male in her life. This can obviously lead to terrible relationships with people who exploit her dysfunction for their gain and even continue the absent father cycle by impregnating her and bailing. This is the woman who keeps the good fathers away from their children out of insecurity with her relationship with her own father, and act like she's the good parent by playing the submissive, timid role when around others or in court. Narcissistic mothers have very similar effects on their daughter, although I do think there are some differences in the personalities that develop that I've seen. The crazy mother can produce a very hypersensitive girl with a victim complex and need to always be reassured and comforted by those around her. This is your classic SJW or Black Lives Matter, hate anyone you can get away with to push your victimhood mentality. She will develop a false sense of morality and how to achieve it and think anyone who disagrees is against her. She will also be the one who exaggerates her struggles and belittles her true abilities to gain support from others or get a person with a passive personality for her to control behind closed doors and be timid and reserved in public. The simps usually get stuck with these ones. The narcissistic mother can also create this strong woman bullshit ass mentality. Now this bullshit is most prevalent in Black women, and I'm still trying to figure out a way to psychologically explain why Black women act like this in America. Because even though there are decent explanations like Black men aren't taking the masculine role or Black women are raised to see men as less than them, I still don't see how this explains how it's so prevalent and accepted. Anyway, back to crazy bitches' effects on their daughters. So the strong woman facade is where the woman doesn't feel like she needs a man and can do everything just as good as a man without taking into account biology or realistic obstacles that would be better suited for a man. She belittles men every chance she gets and devalues their contribution to society and her personal life. She tears down her lover in subtle ways to bring him down to her level and only be content with what she's willing to allow him to do. And all these quote-unquote strong Black women are just women covering up the fact that they never got a chance to have a childhood and not have to take care of herself like an adult. This is due to her mother always being absent and caring about herself more, but constantly telling the daughter she's doing it for her, so the daughter believes that's how women are actually supposed to operate to be happy and fulfilled. Lies, I tell you, lies. The mother is fucking miserable, and she's trying to find an excuse to escape from her reality of being a single mother and having the wall close in on her before she can rip more hearts and wallets from men, or find some hotshot simp to control and be a provider for her daughter, even though his character is shot and her daughter hates the man. Now, how can a narcissistic parent emasculate men? Well, narcissism in a father hinders the son's development of their masculinity and independence. The codependent son doesn't learn how to live for himself without needing the approval or help from his father or any authority figure with which he can create a codependent relationship. Now, I want to make a quick point since I'm bringing up the codependent mentality again and relate it to the ideologies these people, men and women, tend to accept, which is socialism, communism, and even statism. Their entire psyche is based around everyone being happy with the bare minimum required to live decently, because that's all they require to feel like they're doing something with their life. They honestly think that every person on this planet is willing to accept whatever responsibility someone else thinks they should have, and that we should have some type of authoritative figure that makes all the major decisions in our life instead of allowing people the freedom to make their own choices, regardless of if others agree. They are content with being able to force their ideas on others through means of an outside source, as long as their situation isn't affected negatively. They think their problems in life are because of everybody else with power and never think to look at their own surroundings and the people who keep telling them that, and have the willpower to take initiative to change their own life. Hopefully you can see how this relates to children and the codependent relationship they develop with their narcissistic parent, which in this case can be the government. The government abuses its people and exploits them by lying and stealing from them while relying on them to thrive, just like a narcissistic parent does. That's entirely how these ideologies of socialism, communism, and statism thrive. Now back to narcissistic fathers and their effect on sons. The son will have a very difficult time understanding his true potential and having confidence in himself enough to pursue what makes him happy, because he'll always second guess himself, which the narcissistic parent will reinforce by either putting him down directly or indirectly, or avoid supporting the child in their ventures and development in their personal interests with more than empty promises and cliche motivational phrases. The crazy father can also create the self-absorbed son who tries to overcompensate to show he's confident when in reality he thinks he's less than everyone around him. He will abuse women or be irresponsible when dealing with them because he lacks empathy and it's easy for him to abandon his responsibilities like his father. This is where the term toxic masculinity actually has merit to me, Because even though masculinity is men's strength, it can also be our weakness or be used in ways that are detrimental to people around him. The son will be quick-tempered and defensive, which will be a good excuse for him to lash out on others and get in trouble with the law. This is a prime example of toxic masculinity continuing the cycle of sacrificing our sons to government and women's whim, because the son can never really understand the damage that needing validation and to be used by these entities is doing to him in the long run. He will sacrifice himself for immediate gratification of feeling useful to users, willing to put up with his low standard of living, only to fail to realize how much of a toll it's taking on his health and resources. As stated before, violence and manipulation are the two main weapons in the narcissist arsenal, so when you add testosterone to that mix, it only heightens the sense of needing validation and to dominate. Couple that with a clueless mother, and you have a son headed for disaster, unless he finds his own way and loses that need to please others so much. Which leads me to how narcissistic mothers affect their son. Now this is interesting because as single motherhood continues to grow and narcissistic enabling fourth wave feminism Sandman talks about starts to make way, you see the son suffering the most because the mother still has control over the son, so she still has some say in what happens in his life and what type of mentality he has. In my experience, mothers are usually the ones that put their sons on medication because they can't handle. The man is totally emasculated by the narcissistic mother and has the life sucked out of him. This is where the transgendered and other personality disorders thrive in males, because the mother constantly takes advantage of the son and finds different ways to use his masculinity against him. The boy starts to hate himself and focus on ways to be like or appease the mother and become another version of her, whether he decides to be gay or not as well. Now the mother who smothers her son so she can make sure he's brainwashed into caring for women blindly has a direct interest in making him believe women are angels and deserve men's resources, especially if that woman is his mother. The mother treats the son like her boyfriend sometimes and encourages him to take on responsibilities early that benefit her more than the boy. She'll dress it up as beneficial for him, and he will internalize that, which makes mother happy and less likely to act out. This is why you'll see so many young men starting average careers at a very young age and having children, because that's the easy route and keeps the man in his place as the slave provider, never figuring out what he can do to make him feel whole without the need for approval from the women in his life. This man can become the player or the simp because he knows what to do to make women happy with him, and he'll use women or allow women who are attracted to the same BS his mother instilled in him to be his owner. Alright, so if you think you're codependent and want to get past it, I think there's a few ways that you can deal with or avoid narcissistic parents, or at the very least mitigate the damage until you're able to keep your distance. The first and most obvious is to seek professional help, whether a therapist or a doctor or whatever, to figure out your personal situation and how you can fix it. We are all different, and even if what I've been saying resonates, I'm not a doctor and I would want you to expand on the basics I've told you. Another way is realizing when you're becoming a slave to your parents' perception of you, to the point your value in the relationship is more than the value of your own well-being and aspiration. This goes with any family member really, because too often we allow the fact that someone has similar DNA to us cloud our judgment and enable the person's bad behavior and abuse of the relationship. We feel like no matter what, we have to keep trying to make the family work. It's family, right? Nah, fuck all that. You didn't ask to be born into your family and had no choice or say in how they decided to raise you. So as you get older, or if you're already older, you have no obligation to take care of them or have any relationship with them just because you were born. Just like any other relationship, parents have to earn your respect and companionship. And if they don't build that foundation with you when they're still legally responsible for you, then once you become independent, the relationship is no longer an obligation or necessity for your survival, as it was when you were a kid. Don't fall for the okie doke of the narcissistic parents starting to be nice when they realize they're getting closer to death and will need somebody to take care of them. You're just continuing the cycle of codependency and putting more responsibility on yourself that takes away from building your own life and enjoying your younger years. This is the exact mentality simps and blue pill men have of rescuing their women and overlooking all of that they had to lose to feel that sense of security. You can figure out how to get your own security and learn learn how to keep your distance from these people. Now, from what I've read in my experiences, telling them directly you're done and why doesn't usually work in your favor, especially if you're dependent on them in any way still. More subtle approaches of not going out of your way to communicate with them or avoiding doing things they want to take time to yourself are better ways of slowly getting them out your life. If they notice you've caught on to them, they will panic and either attack you and make you defensive and want to prove your character to them, or distract you with phony actions of love or gratitude and play a part of rehabilitation until they can revert back to take advantage of you when you let your guard down. You have to realize where they get their power from when dealing with you, because codependent people or people in a relationship with a narcissist think they possess the same level of sympathy and morality as the codependent. That couldn't be further from the truth. So when dealing with these people, you can't allow your emotions or the history you might have with them blind you to their true character and its detriment to your life. So again, insecurity, emasculation, lack of control over one's life and their future, addiction, and lacking healthy release of testosterone are all signs that you may have grown up with a narcissistic parent. I wouldn't be surprised if a large percentage of men who are knowingly in the MGTOW movement were abused by at least one of their parents or never had any. Narcissism can be healthy at small doses, like shrooms, damn it, but you take too much and that ass is grass. Stop other men from taking too much shrooms. That's all I'm saying, man. As competitive animals, we need to be knocked off our pedestal sometimes and reflect on the fact that we aren't the center of the world, especially when it comes to bringing children in the world. So once again, this is Rev Outlier, and I appreciate you dirty bastards taking the time to watch. Please like, comment, and share, and subscribe to spread the movement. Thank you.